And my guest for tonight, the jungler for Noble, Skeeledon. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty damn well. So let's get right into it. Uh, you've been around the SPL for a while. How long have you been playing Smite?
Since August 20. Yeah, it's been a while. About a little over, around 5 years almost.
Oh wow, that is quite a while. And you've been on both sides of the Smite scene. You've been on the amateur side. You've been on the pro side. How has it felt going between being in the pro league and being in the challenger scene?
Um, Obviously I enjoy the pro league a bit more, but yeah, it was good to go back to challenger scene, honestly, just because best way to put it, like when you're in SPL, kind of feels like you'll be there forever, but that spot's not always gonna be there if you ever slack.
Yeah. Would you say you've learned more from the SPL or from the challenger scene during
Oh,
various stints?
100% the SPL. Just the quality of games there are just too much better than challenger scene.
Yeah. Um, as far as you being around the scene so long, you've been on a lot of different teams. Has that affected like your play style or like who you are as a player?
Um, I don't believe so. Generally, I try to stay on one team unless it's like I think it's imploding. I just don't like jumping teams unless it's needed or unless the offer's too great. The best example I can give with that was from jumping Randozos to Envy at the time. But I just think trying to find the correct fit until I find that jumping or not jumping, but going from team to team when it's needed.
Okay. Out of all of your past teams, do you have like a favorite teammate or like a favorite team that you've been on?
Favorite teammate, I'll probably honestly go with Ven. I just when we first played together, we just had this instant click thing. Like I've never had that with anyone.
Yeah. I mean, I would have, if I were a betting man, I would have bet like Polar Bear Mike or someone like that.
I love Mike, don't get me wrong, but it's just like if we're talking about I would so far, I don't feel comfortable saying it with my current team enough just because I've only been with them for like a week and a half. It's like I need to play with them more. But
Right.
then like we just had that instant click.
Yeah. Uh, so speaking of Vin, let's talk a little bit about Oxygen Supremacy. That team, you guys were in the Challenger circuit. You had a rough start, and then you kind of built up your momentum. You made it to the gauntlet for the SPL, uh, and you went on a huge tear and you made waves. Tell me what it felt like at the gauntlet to go on that winning streak.
It felt like when it was happening, it was amazing, but we kind of expected it. In fact, we were almost a little like sad we didn't make it all the way. Not because it's like, oh, it would have been sick if we made it, because we truly believed we should have made it. Like, I'm not gonna blame it on like being tired, but and I think if we did get a break or a longer break, I should say it goes to the next day, we would have made it. And that's really the only way to put it. It's like it's exciting when it was happening, but we were a little sad that we didn't make it.
Right. I think going into the gauntlet, I had been talking to a few of the players and a few of the coaches, and your guys' name kept coming up as saying like, who do you not want to play? And they're like, oh yeah, those Oxygen Supremacy guys. Like we don't want to face them. Like really, the Challenger Circuit team? You're not gonna like talk about ALG. You're not gonna talk about like Soar at the time. It was these Oxygen Supremacy guys. But like from what I collected, you guys were just monsters in the scrims.
Pretty much what happened is if we could scrim, we would scrim. It doesn't matter when. Like if you wanted to be on at like 4 o'clock and scrim, we would do it. We were taking everything we could. We just wanted to like come to this land, just be like, we're the best team here. We want to show everyone. So it, pretty much towards the end, like, oh, this is a good team. And that's probably around the time the interview started happening. So I'm presuming like it was just a good lining up of everything for us to be like hyped up.
Right. So after your guys' monster performance at the LAN. You guys really defied all expectations. I mean, as much as you were hyped up as being scrim monsters, you guys also had the stigma of maybe not necessarily being able to deliver, in crunch time, and being able to go on that run in the LAN. I think you proved a lot of people wrong that you can deliver in the crunch time. But we have to talk about the relegations. What happened?
Okay, so I do think if you watch our first game against Flashpoint at land, you can tell we had a little land jitters. And I think just by being surrounded by teammates, that was like immediately worn off after the first game. It's like, okay, guys, we're all here for each other. Once we win this, once we won that, I'm pretty much unstoppable because that's all it took. But online, it's you're not by your teammate. You don't get to like physically see them. That's a big thing for just calming people down. And I felt like going into that, we're like, oh, it's best of ones. We need to make sure we win. The first game we played, we lost. That probably rattled us a little, like more than we would probably give credit to, I believe. And it just also, I believe the meta just really hurt us because if you remember watching LAN, a lot of the times it would be like Ma dies, we kill 4 people, and that Ma immediately got blown up, and we couldn't really get anything off of it because he died too fast.
How big of a difference was the meta between going from the challenger scene into the SPL?
Pretty big. I remember talking to Verizio one time, and he straight up told me and Ven, "You need to stop playing like it's SPL and start playing like you're in challengers. You're picking too much mid to late game. You need to pick more early game because that's where you're losing." And right when he told us that, the next week, that's actually when we started winning like almost everything. So I'd probably say the biggest difference is really just how much early game you have to pick. If you don't pick like challengers, just picks a lot more early game than SPL.
Do you think that having to play in that meta and then trying to shift gears so quickly into the SPL meta kind of tripped you guys up going into that, the relegations?
Didn't much have anything to do with it because we were always playing the SPL meta. It's just like that was the issue. It's like we had to adjust to the challenger meta on that one specific day, and then for the entire week of scrims, we would go back to the SPL.
Okay.
It was, I honestly believe it was mostly the Sunder just hurt us way more than I can probably think of.
Yeah, I think Sunder hurts a lot of people right now.
Yeah.
So after the relegations, where was morale at? Where were you guys' thoughts at? Were you, what was the talk between
Kind
you
of
guys?
sorry about that. It was kind of disbelief. It was like, did we after Lamb, where it's like we can't lose this, and then it happened, we lost it, and we're like, really? Uh, we were a little annoyed at this, like right after. It's like I can't believe Best of Ones did this, but we kind of had to accept it. We can't do anything about it. We talked for a while. It's like, what are we doing? And the consensus really was none of us wanted to play another uh split of challenge. Whether it just wasn't feasible for some, just because of really the money difference in SPL compared to challengers. Uh, so with that, pretty much we decided it would be best to split up because we believed all of us were SPL players, so we might as well get on like an SPL team.
Right. So that brings us to the present. You're back. I mean, I say back, but I mean this is a squad, Noble, that started out as Randozos, which you were on, and then got picked up by Noble, and is now it's kind of full circle for you, right?
Yeah. It's kind of weird, honestly, thinking about that. It's like I started my SPL career with Wubbin, and here I am a year later, being with Wubbin again.
Is it kind of surreal to be back on that squad that like you were like an OG member of, but like has changed so much?
It's definitely when I play with Wubbin, I just remember back then when we were rain gang, the team environment was a bit trolly. Now it's seeing him in such a serious environment and like him taking as seriously it is. It's a big like, wow, this is different. Because it wasn't, I shouldn't even say that. Like, it wasn't only him. Like, everyone kind of had that mentality on that team.
I was gonna ask how different is this team now than like when you were first on it?
I, it's really just like, it's the same player with Wubbin, but outside of that, there's really no parallels. It's like, environment's completely different. We have a absurd coach. Draylo does so much. If I ask him to like watch VODs, what do you think of this? He'll play devil's advocate while I can't speak. Not even if he believes I'm wrong, just so we can pretty much argue something out to see like the full discussion.
Right. And Randozzo's used to be the joke squad. I mean, before there was Sanguine, there was Randozzo's, right?
Hmm.
Do you
We got to
feel
win at least.
you guys got to win at
I'll
least?
say that at least. We've heard that.
Do you think that the stigma of Randozzo's has kind of followed Noble around a little bit?
And I would say when they picked up MLC, it kind of disappeared. And the big reason for that, it's like when you pick up an ex world champion, you really can't have that stigma about the team.
It's I mean that's fair enough. I feel like MLC going to Noble was a big like step of legitimizing Noble. I mean, you
Yeah,
can't
exactly.
have MLC on like some scrub tier team. I mean, even with that stigma, kind of gone or dissipating, it still feels like, at least to me, people are really sleeping on Noble, and they don't really expect you guys to do anything this split.
I think the big thing about this team is we're really learning how to play together. We were really rocky. That's the only way to put it. Like way worse than what we did in SPL. And SPL is not a good show of how we currently are. We're way better than that. We've grown so much since I joined. And just I think it's just going to take some time, honestly, because right now we're adjusting our god pulls to play as a good team. And the moment I believe once we get our god pulls in the right place, where we can then do picks and bans however way we want, that's when we're really going to show how good we are. And that's going to take a couple of weeks.
All right, yeah, I mean, I think everyone was kind of expecting there to be some issues with synergy. I mean, they added you as the jungler, and Aquarius came in as the solo laner, and individually, you know, everybody who's watched our show knows we love Aquarius. He was probably our pick for like rookie of the year to watch, like one of those candidates with his play. We it's funny enough, we likened him to last year's Walrus on Noble, and now that he's on Noble, it's a little funny. And then you with your SPL gatekeepers, your Oxygen Supremacy run, you really show that you've evolved as a player as well. And it's all coming together. I mean, Wowie kind of reminds me of like, an early Panda Cat. He's got a lot of great skills. Wubbin is, a good support. And then you've got MLC. And really from a synergistic point of view, it feels like MLC is the odd man out. Would you disagree?
No, I kind of would actually. Yeah, I feel like just I'm MLC is probably classical mids I could say I played with, and that's with even if I don't call CC, like which I should, he just follows up instinctively. Like there was points where I was playing a god and he would just follow up unconditionally, and that game was pretty snowbally.
Yeah. I know in the past, we've heard all these kind of horror stories with MLC, but then, him going to Noble, everyone was like, all right, well, maybe this is his attempt to really reform. Have you had any negative experience with MLC? And I understand, like, if you can't really, you don't want to trash talk a teammate, but, I got to ask.
I would say, no, trust me, I would say if like at least hint at it if I truly believe like he was the same old MLC. But from so far playing with him, he is, from what I can tell, I have no issues playing him. Like he's like any teammate I've really had. If he has issues, he'll take them, or if he has any issues, he'll take critique on them. But he won't ever like this. Why are you doing this? He hasn't done that yet. So as far as I can tell, it's fixed.
I mean, I think we're all pretty happy to hear that. I mean, there's a lot of MLC fans out there, and then when all of the news kind of broke about like why he was leaving a team, and then why Cope and Vin and those guys left, and that whole thing was real messy. So it's really nice to kind of hear that like he is changing as a person. So I think we've covered pretty much everything from like the team point of view. Is there anything else you would like to add or say that we haven't really talked about yet?
No, not really.
All right. I guess one thing I will ask is, how does it feel to have everybody? I mean, pretty much everybody from Oxygen Supremacy be in the SPL separately, though.
It's like it's good to see, but it's a bit sad. I'm not gonna lie, I'm still a bit sad that we didn't make it as a team, but I knew every one of them. Yeah, so it's good to see them back in it. It'll also be pretty fun to play against my teammates. We can find out which one of us was the best.
Right. I mean, this is speculation, I guess, on your part, but like, why haven't we seen like a Day to Remember be picked up by anybody?
Uh, I think ADC and NA is probably one of the most like contested, probably one of the hardest areas to break in, just because of how many good ones. Like even if you look at like last split, like those ADCs, they aren't bad. Like you just said it yourself when we were talking about this earlier. Wowie is incredible right now. It's just no one really wants to replace an ADC unless it's either a major pick, like a major pickup, or really it's just you have an ADC spot open and there isn't one.
Yeah, I mean, we went through. I think the transition from season 3 to season 4 was like the mid scramble. Everybody trying to pick up a mid laner or switch to mid, and we saw that whole thing. And now it looks like the overabundance is now the solo lane, which is weird. Looking at free agents right now, Walrus doesn't have a team, and that just blows my mind.
Yeah, I think it's kind of similar to ADC. I don't even want to say like an overabundance in roles. It's just SPL's getting to be an actual like competitive for every like spot. It's no longer like, oh, well, we have 6 good ADCs or we have 4 good ADCs in this. It's like there's over 8 good. No longer like I can just take this person's spot because I'm better. It's like every spot's contestable.
Right. So we got to go into this. The NA versus EU matchup. Is EU that far ahead of NA right now?
In terms of picks and bans, I would say yes. In terms of mechanics and synergy, I would say no. It just with how important the meta actually like, dictates how well the game is played. Ahead that even if we had better mechanics in NA, like by far, I don't believe we would win games. Until
Right.
we get caught up with that mentality, I'm not sure how long it will take, but I don't think NA will beat EU. I think the best examples, I remember right after coming back from land and hearing Robin buffs, I'm like, let's try this, let's try this. We didn't really get to play it too much. Or going up to land, I wanted to try Robin, and we didn't really play it too much. And then EU comes out with like 3 weird picks, picking up Sunder, doing all this stuff. I'm like, this was the stuff we wanted to try, but we never.
Yeah. It definitely feels like watching the SPL, especially this last week. It was really interesting because again, you see the EU teams picking up things that you didn't see on the NA side. The one thing I will say about the NA side of things is if you watch that LG series, they focused hard on objectives. Are we going to see a renewed focus from NA on objectives?
We kind of have to, otherwise, like that's one of the major things. Like if we don't, NA can't catch up to EU. If you watch EU's objective control, it's pretty much they played a lot like Eager. Eager has absurdly good objective control, and in that sense, if it's they risk it at all, they'll just reset it and fight. And EU does the same thing, but a lot of NA teams are willing. It's like, okay, we are 70% chance to. If that ever backfires, then they're down a ton. But if it doesn't, then they take the objective and get a small lead versus just resetting it. They could have postponed the lead by like 30 seconds and no chance of being stolen.
All right, I think that about does it for us. I will say this is your portion. This is your chance to give shout outs. I'll give you my soapbox to stand on. Anything you want to say? Anybody you want to give a thanks to?
Really, my current team, Noble, MLC, Robin, they pretty much like they took me right away after we lost, even though they beat us, and they've really just made it a home pretty much. There's one thing I realized: it's like I need a good environment to play on, and they've really made sure like it's here. And I really can appreciate, like, I just can't say thanks enough to them. And I guess Noble as well. They're an amazing sponsor from what I hear. I haven't dealt with them too much, but yeah, I'm happy to be working with them.
All right, it's good to hear. That is Skeeledon from Noble. Do you have a Twitch? Do you stream? Do you go do all that kind of thing?
Yeah, I've been streaming a lot more lately, and I plan to stream as much as I can in the summer. So I'm going to try every day. You can find that at twitch.tv/Skeeledon, and my Twitter is Skeeledon as well, actually.
All right. Thank you for coming on the show. Good luck this week. I think your games you have Monkey Madness and
I believe Gabe.
Gabe. I'm really looking forward to those games. I know everyone's kind of looking at Monkey Madness and Gabe as 2-0ing you guys. I legitimately think you can at least split. I think you guys can give these teams a run for the money, and I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I think we'll do well against them.
All right. So good luck, and thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.